welcome back. This is The Foolish Optimist. I'm your host, Amy McDonald. I am so excited to introduce my guest today. Mike Swanson is running for the U.S. Senate in Texas. He's a working class champion, a former union member, and he knows what is at stake when it comes to issues that hit constituents' pocketbooks. He's been saved by Medicaid and SNAP before, and he knows what it's like to make tough budget decisions. So from his experiences, he's taking on the largest Senate race in the 2026 cycle and aims to show that he is the fighter that the people deserve to have in Congress. Mike, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so
Yeah,
glad you're here.
absolutely. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
You are our first Texas representation. How does it feel?
Uh, I'm going to be getting that quite a bit. Yeah, as the first declared candidate, even for the
Yeah,
Democratic side, big challenge there, big shoes to fill.
exactly. So what this year in 2026 made you decide to run for office, especially for Senate?
So this is a bug that I've had in my mind, in my brain, in my heart. It's a fire that's been building in my stomach for a number of years now. And the need to run for office has been a necessary form of activism. I think that many people are starting to understand, especially with what we're seeing in DC now, is we can't let situations like this go unchecked.
Mhm.
And the way that it goes is we know this is not how this country was founded. We know that this is not what the principles of government are supposed to do for the people. So that's a big reason of why I'm running is I want to bring back that common sense decency that we used to have, but no longer have.
Good. You're saying some really big words there. Common sense, decency,
Mm,
what,
yeah, what are
Um,
those words? Who? Yeah, Webster's dictionary, please.
yeah, yeah. But I do appreciate that, and I totally understand. Um, have you always been in Texas? Are you a lifelong Texan?
The closest I've been to a lifelong Texan has been drinking Dr. Pepper for the past 21 years. So that's about the closest I've gotten. I grew up in a military family. So for the vast majority of my childhood, it was spent moving around. We never was able to live in Texas at that point. We spent most of our time up and down the Pacific coast,
Okay.
spending time in Alaska, Washington, Idaho, and then finalizing out in Illinois.
Mhm.
Went to college in Illinois, and then among that, I somehow kept the trend of moving as we do in the military,
Yeah.
and finally ended up here in Texas.
Awesome. Awesome. And with your understanding of the constituency in Texas right now, what do you think the biggest issues are for Texans today?
Right now, I think a lot of it is an affordability crisis. Um, I can't go 2 miles down the street without seeing a homeless person on the side of the street.
Mhm.
Um, and Texas is one of those states that luckily the rent prices aren't as crazy as they are around the rest of the country. But because of where wages are at, because of job availability, people are having a hard time making ends meet even here. So it's crazy to me, especially after now that the Texas legislature is just adjourned out of session a couple days ago,
Yeah.
that we have to wait until 2027 for the next state legislature to convene. Um, and that's going to be a huge problem. And, that's the same issues that we have to take up in the 2026 cycle, not only for the state candidates, but also for candidates like me who have that effect on a national level to bring policies that are going to help the Texan people come back, essentially.
Mhm.
Um, there are policies that are going to interchange, and we have to work out the intersectionality of those issues to ensure that we're helping make sure that Texans are getting a quality care of life. They're able to put money away in an emergency fund, that they're able to go out and eat to restaurants without having to worry about their pocketbook. There's a
Mhm.
number of things that we don't have because the we have 60% of people that are one emergency away from it all crashing down. And
Yeah.
that's across the
Yeah.
country. That's not just Texas, that's across the
Yeah.
country. And the administration that we have now is not doing anything to focus on that anymore. So it's a huge reason of why we need to get better elected representatives in Congress as well as state legislatures across the country.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think something that strikes me obviously about you is just coming from a working class background. There are so few people right now in Washington who do actually come from the working class that as we would define it, right?
Right.
So it's kind of integral to get people like you up there and people who actually understand the feeling of going to bed, counting every penny you have to make
Mhm.
sure you can actually get to your job the next day before you get paid the next day,
I've been
things like
there.
that.
Those moments, I've
Same,
been there. Yeah.
same. Oh yeah, and it's like people are like, "Oh, it's not that bad." You're like, "No, it is." Like I'm deciding if I'm going to get gas or if I'm going to eat, and if I'm going to eat what it like it's debilitating, frankly.
Yeah.
So affordability in terms of how to make Texas more affordable. Do you have any thoughts around that? Like maybe big programs for the economy, et cetera.
So I think a lot of those issues are going to have to come down to what municipal and state uh, legislature is going to have to take care of. And, there are some federal programs that can help take care of that. But quite frankly, a lot of that comes down to things like universal health care, comes down to infrastructure, comes down to childcare, which is a part of infrastructure. I will
Mm-hmm.
fold childcare as a part of infrastructure. Um, because now I look at childcare and seeing that people are paying like 3 times what they're paying in rent just for childcare. And I don't have kids myself, but looking at the cost of childcare is absolutely insane. And I realize that's something that's holding down a lot of people from being able to work. Is that
Mm-hmm.
some of them are either not holding a job because they can't afford childcare,
Right.
or they have to work specifically to pay for it. So that's part of my plan is getting universal childcare taken care of in a massive infrastructure bill to revitalize the middle class. Um, Also, part in that is universal health care, because if you don't have to pay those premiums outside of you may have to be paying them in
Right.
such a way that that money is going towards your taxes, but then you don't have to worry about the premiums, you don't have to worry about copays, you don't have to worry about co-insurance, anything. So it's a lot of things that are going to help boost your pocketbook
Mm-hmm.
because you're not having to spend, not having to worry about a $10,000 bill if you broke your arm and you have to walk out of the emergency room after it's fixed up. So,
Well, and then of course, if you have kids, like they're constantly trying to hurt themselves, right? Which is
yeah.
great. They're supposed to be having so much fun and climbing trees and stuff, but
Hmm.
then, one fall, like you said, that's $10,000 or a
But
chipped tooth or,
yeah, little
um,
Johnny Knoxville's right there, all trying to
truly.
recreate.
Five.
Exactly. Yes.
It's so true. I mean, I feel like half of a parent's job is just keeping their kid alive, right?
Right.
And they're having a great time. Kids not afraid at all. Parents are
Mm-hmm.
like, please never do that again. The kid's like, I'm gonna do it again.
Again.
But yeah, I mean, I think those are two major things that really boost the economy without having to, you know, re- uh, build more jobs and really find like increase wages and things like that. That is a
Hmm.
way to do it without some of these other things that are hindering the economy right now. Now you mentioned you're very interested in renewable energy. Talk to me about renewable energy in Texas and what that would look like.
So I think this is going to be the most major thing that surprises anybody. Texas is a energy powerhouse. Next to
Yeah.
any other state in the union, we are the largest producer of oil, but we are also the largest producer of renewable energy.
I mean, the first one, not surprising. Second one, okay.
That, yeah, exactly. And even that is crazy to me when I first found out about that in my research is that holy crap, how are we doing this?
Right.
So, in the move that we're doing towards reducing our independence on oil, fracking, everything like that, um, we have to take a look at that system and think, okay, well, how are we doing so well in renewable energy production? Um, we had a few heat waves that come through over the past few weeks,
Yeah.
and ERCOT ERCOT is the
Hmm.
energy provider for pretty much everything south, like around DFW and most of West Texas and South Texas. The rest of the state system is up on the national system for the
Okay.
energy grid. Um, and because of having those renewable energy resources, we haven't had a similar crisis that we had a couple years ago during
Okay.
that cold snap.
I remember
Um,
that.
right, exactly. And that was like major news across the entire country. Um, so we have to work towards looking at the renewable energy industry here in Texas and thinking, okay, what is going so well? How do we get people to transition from oil and fracking over into renewable energy? And then how do we proliferate this across the board with the rest of the states?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's a major overhaul of our
Yeah.
energy system, I think.
I think it's also a change in the American psyche, right? We have been so bound and held by the allure of
Yeah.
oil for so long. Um, but to hear that it's working in Texas, which is one of the largest states in our country, is amazing, right?
Yeah.
And of course, with these new types of technology, then we put new programs out for new jobs and we train people. And again, we're back to the economy.
Yeah. So and that's another thing that kind of brings into that conversation as well is supply and demand. If
Mhm.
you are limiting the amount of renewable energy that you're producing, you're increasing the price of it. The
Right.
lower supply, higher demand causes high prices. So if you increase the supply to meet the demand or exceed demand, guess what? Energy is going to cost a lot less.
Yeah.
And that's simple economics that,
Right.
I've seen conservatives say over and over again, how are we going to pay for it? It's going to pay itself back. Don't worry about it.
Hmm.
Because if we put so much into the system, everybody's going to be able to access it for a rate that's accessible.
Right. 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 Uh, it's I don't know why, but like a meme from 20 years ago just popped in my head, and it's like it's just math. It's just
Yeah,
math, you know.
it's just
Um,
math.
it's
I know
just
I
math.
avoided it a lot in high school and college and whatnot, but even
Yeah.
I took microeconomics and I can still understand macroeconomics. Like,
Right.
it's not
It's
that
supply
hard.
and demand, and we see it in every single industry. We see it. Oh, well, how about this? Speaking of supply and demand, let's talk about housing, right?
Yeah.
Affordable housing. Obviously, Texas has had a I was looking at all the numbers for registered voters, which we'll get to a little bit later, but
Mhm.
there seems to be a bit of a boom happening there, right? A lot of people are moving, just a lot more happening in Texas probably than about 10 or 15 years ago. What's going on with housing? You said rents are decently low, but
Yeah.
for
So from what I've seen, a lot of the just apartments, most of them are running sub $1,000. So looking at like
even
700,
in major
800,
cities,
even in major cities, surprisingly. There are some places here in San Antonio, even you get downtown and, 1,000 is really the floor, but sometimes it's also the ceiling. Um,
interesting.
and this is coming from a person who's lived in Mississippi where the vast majority of rents were over $1,000. And that
No
was just for a
way.
one bedroom. Um,
Okay.
and it's insane to me that one, I have to figure out what the difference was between the two and why.
Right.
But I think it's a supply and demand thing as well, is that there's so many people that are moving into Texas that apartments are able to stay more affordable than they are in other localities.
Hmm.
Um, and that's just bringing back the same economical theory is if
Right.
you increase the supply, you to meet the demand or exceed the demand, the cost is going to become more affordable. Um, and we have to bring that back into local municipality and county boards to understand that because they're the ones that are zoning their areas. They are
Right.
responsible for ensuring that, you can have, these big six-story buildings that have commercial real estate on the ground floor and then five over on top of them.
Hmm.
And that's something I think that even Costco has been taking a look at as well, is building apartments over their warehouses, which,
I
kind
love
of throws a
Costco.
red flag because of like corporate cities and whatnot. But it seems like it's a measure that, if you want people to have more housing and you want even your workers to have more affordable housing, if
Yeah.
you have the money to control it, that might be one thing. But as long as we're not turning it into star-based Texas, where it's the entire city that is
Right. Right.
controlling it,
You're actually getting paid in star-based dollars. Have
exactly,
fun.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a little bit of a I don't know, 19th century jump scare.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, I mean, there's also like consistently been a lot of building in Texas, right? It's like one of the construction capitals of our country.
Mm,
Um, which leads me to you're in San Antonio, you're in Texas. Obviously, immigration is forever and ever a hot button ticket item
hmm
in this country, but it's even more so because you're on the border of Mexico.
Yep.
What are you hearing from the people you've been speaking with while getting this campaign off the ground about immigration?
So a lot of it obviously is, you know, people want immigration to have a legal process to
Hmm.
come into the country. I think that's probably the baseline for where most Americans are at.
Right.
Um, and, I don't have a huge argument against that because I also don't want criminals running our streets. I don't want drugs and cartels to be running and causing a national health crisis. I've had friends that have lost their lives to drugs. So
Yeah.
that's, a personal issue to me. But we do have to look at what is causing this bottleneck because most immigration cases right now, even asylum ones, get put in to this backlog of cases that we have. We have 3.9 million cases that are backlogged right now, and they're only going at a rate of 200,000 per year getting adjudicated. So if we do some simple math,
Yeah.
that's
As
about
again, it's just math.
that's about 19 and a half to 20 years of waiting for people to get their cases heard, which means that our legal process to become a citizen of the United States of America, to even enter the country legally, to get your case heard, to get on, CBP's role, get on Immigration's Customs Enforcement role, we have to get rid of this backlog. We have to increase funding into the judicial system
Yeah.
under this executive office that manages it. Um, and that's the surprising thing is that it's not the judicial branch technically that runs it. There's an executive office on immigration relations that runs the judicial system for immigration. So we have to fund that office. We have to fund the attorneys. We have to fund for judges to increase the amount of cases that can be heard to
Yeah.
not necessarily fast track, but to make it more manageable. And then once that backlog comes down, we can scale.
Right.
It's
Right.
the
Just
short
get
term.
it back on track.
Exactly. Because that
20
that
years.
it
It's such bullshit.
right. Like
Like,
one
come
one
on.
year is already long enough. Like I'm looking at
Right.
this and I'm like, I'm having to break down my election cycle by like 6, 7 months apiece.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
looking at it like they have to wait 20 years just to get a case heard
Right. Right.
to get
It's in 20 years, you're going to build an entire life. You could literally build, sell businesses. You could buy homes. You could literally, that's a kid's entire, they're good. They'd be in
yeah,
college. So
exactly.
that's like absolutely, it's disgusting. And it's just, it feels very bureaucratic and it feels like there's probably a lot of places to tighten it up.
And that's a huge thing is not only bureaucracy, but it's also partisan and political the way that they're making it
Of
is
course.
it's really frustrating to me that a lot of politicians that are in elected office right now, they don't want to solve the problems because if they solve it, they have nothing to campaign on. So if they keep it as a problem, they can keep campaigning on it. I'm the kind of guy that
Hmm.
I want to get in office so I can just solve the problems. I don't want to have to necessarily be scraping the bottom of the barrel like the Texas legislature did this session,
Right.
but I don't want to have any major problems to have to legislate away. I like if we have to consider war or we have to consider like some brand new emerging technology thing that we've never heard of before, even Congress is facing a backlog of things only because it's held up by partisan politics.
Yeah. I mean, I think, for people our generation, I don't know how old you are, but I'm 35. And so, like, millennials and younger, and even some of the Gen Xers, we haven't seen a function in Congress in years, right? And for a
Decades
long
even.
time, yeah, for a long, like, vast majority of our adult life, right? Like, my
Mm,
first election was Barack Obama.
mm,
And I remember the next day or like the following week, Mitch McConnell. camera in his face saying, I'm going to do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Nothing he wants will get done. And like since then, it's gotten progressively worse. So you are in line with a lot of the other people I've been interviewing who are saying, I want to get there. I want to solve problems. And then I want to leave. I don't want to stay
Yeah.
forever. And this doesn't, I know, I don't want to be traveling back and forth between DC and my home state forever.
Right. Like if I can get all of my problems solved within 6 years, sure, I will gladly only serve one term.
Yeah.
But that's probably the problem of why a lot of politicians don't leave office is because,
Right.
we even look at Bernie Sanders and we think this man is in his 80s and he still hasn't retired yet. But
Right.
you have to consider the moral conviction of the man to look at this and be like, nothing's getting done, and I don't have somebody to replace me in leading this fight. Uh,
Yeah.
and that's just a crying shame because even Bernie should have the right to a retirement and focus on his own piece, his and Jane's own piece. Um,
Right.
and so, what are we doing in Congress to just keep doing this? Like, even because of things like Citizens United and campaign
Yeah.
finance and how corporations are able to donate to the politicians to keep these problems on a cycle of going and going and going and going. It's all interconnected. It's all a problem. It's all
Yeah.
we have to get rid of that to start working on actually creating meaningful change, to start actually worrying about, making real and positive and material change for our constituents.
100%. I think I it's I struggle with the Bernie retiring thing just because
Hmm.
I do feel like a major failing of the Democratic Party is and has been to not cultivate the next generation of people.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at like a side by side comparison of Democrats versus Republicans, the Republicans, they got a machine going.
Yeah.
They're like, they're starting them really early. You can go on YouTube and have your child watch like PragerU for kids, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So like it's I'm with you and I do think that a lot of these politicians should have the capacity and the ability to retire, but I'm also not sure that it's not by design. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Exactly. Because that's even the crazier thing is like 4 or 5 years ago, Madison Cawthorn was the youngest member to ever be elected to Congress.
Mm-hmm.
And then Maxwell Frost came along to become the youngest person ever elected to Congress. So, that bar keeps getting lower, but we don't have enough of those people. And, currently
Yeah.
Deja Fox out of Arizona 7th even
Yes.
is, she just turned 25 like last week, I think it was from the time of this recording.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's inspiring to see. And, I've even got a follower on TikTok that's like 14, 15, 16 years old starting to make videos about politics. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this is the guy that I'm building a bridge for when I get
Right.
in office. And even if I don't get in office, it's still a bridge I want to build
Yeah.
because the biggest saying that I keep hearing about politics is if you don't do politics, politics is going to do you.
It's true. It's so
Right.
true. It hurts to hear it, but it's true.
It's a very true statement. It's so real because I've had these feelings before of like I'm jealous of the people that are so comfortable in their position in life to not do politics because it's like
Yeah.
eventually it's going to come to you and then you're going to
Right.
realize what have I been doing this whole time.
And I think that's kind of one of those traps that we fell into as a collective in the United States, right?
Yeah.
Our government helped a lot of people get into like a comfortable enough middle class space that they felt safe and content and just
Hmm.
kind of stopped paying attention for a while. Uh, and then all of a sudden we all woke up one day and we are like, wait a minute, what? Yeah, like what happened?
What?
And
They
like,
finally came to eat my face. What?
yeah, something about leopards and eating
Yeah.
faces, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Um, so okay, you're in Texas.
Hmm.
Let's talk about the big one, the Second Amendment.
Hmm. Yeah.
How do you feel about guns?
So I'll start with juxtapositioning on history here. Um, I'm not a hell yeah, I'll take away your guns guy. I'm not gonna make that mistake that Beno's made. Um, no shade to Beto, but that was the deflating moment I think
Insane.
his campaign had.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not something that I subscribe to in taking away people's guns. If you're a legal, law-abiding citizen and you have a gun, I fully support your ability to own that
Hmm.
gun, to use that gun for hunting, for sport, for
Right.
self-defense. There's a reason that the founders put that in the Constitution as revolutionaries, because
Right.
that was their intention, was keeping it for revolution. Um, and even among self-defense, because of how the British treated the colonies, the Third Amendment, there's a reason why the Third Amendment is the Third Amendment, because hey, we need to protect ourselves, but we also don't want to keep soldiers in our houses.
Right. Right.
um, so on the whole spectrum of the Second Amendment is, we have to have these conversations about where are we willing to meet on the middle ground,
Hmm.
because we've spent so many years, telling them this is where we're at and we're not moving from it, but
Right.
you're also at this spot and not moving from it. And there's somewhere in here that we have to determine where that spectrum is, on where we're finally not seeing the death of children being the
Yeah.
largest cause of death for children.
Yeah.
And that's where that's concerning to me, is we have to have that conversation. We have to figure out how we can legislate that in to
Hmm.
protect not only children, but, innocent lives from mass shootings and
Hmm.
everywhere else. Um, so, you know, I fully support a person's right to carry. I fully support, you know, the right to own a gun. If you have the mental capacity, if you have the
Right.
legal standing to, that's cool. Absolutely. Even for the times that I go to a shooting range, I enjoy the practice of it. It's really cool. People that are into guns, are very devoted to, gun safety and whatnot. So
Yeah.
there's got to be a partisan political play to how that conversation has been going over the last few years, because the people that I've met that are gun owners, they don't seem to have, or they're withholding, that whole conversation of, don't take away my Second Amendment. Good, I'm not planning to. We
Right.
still just
Right.
need to figure out how do we create a good and effective change to stop letting children die.
Yeah. No, I know. It's one of those like simple but not easy things. And I think you're right. I think the vast majority of gun owners in this country are very responsible, right?
Right. Yeah.
And of course, the problem lies with the fact that like we have different state laws and all of these things. New York City itself, where I live, pretty hard to get a gun. It's pretty hard to get a permit. But
Yeah.
we're in the Northeast. We got states all around us, and every single state has a different law, and people, jump around it with things like that. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
You mentioned, oh, keep going.
Yeah. When I lived in Illinois, okay, these were the times that a lot of these mass shootings were getting a lot of news coverage. And so, the conversation of, well, people in Chicago are constantly killing each other
Yeah.
and they have firearms there that are unchecked. It's only like a 45-minute drive across the border from Chicago into Indiana, where there
Right.
are
Right.
much less restrictions.
Yeah.
So, unless there's a national, standard for how guns are
Quick background
acquired,
check.
right? Like,
You know,
have you ever committed a felony? Have you ever done this? Have you ever
did
killed
you
anybody?
did you buy guns in another state yesterday? Like we
Right,
just
exactly.
want to check. We just, are you slowly creating an arsenal? What's going on here?
Yeah, I'm sure
Just
there's a
quick
line there in
check.
Arsenal, but yeah, just,
Yeah.
you know,
You know.
are you meant to be doing this?
Yeah.
Are you
Right.
going to use
No.
this for nefarious purposes? But yeah,
Exactly.
that's the thought that I wanted to get there.
No, I'm with you on that, and that's exactly right. Like people say the same thing about New York. Crazy.
Mhm.
So you mentioned Beto O'Rourke, one of our. He wasn't the last person to run for Senate. That was Colin Allred,
Yep.
but he is the last person to run in a midterm election, right? Colin
Yep.
Allred ran on presidential. So I do want to talk a little bit about the numbers in Texas, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, huge state. Um, right now, the last I checked, there's like almost 18 million people who are are registered to vote, and that's
Yep.
actually only like 82 or 83% of the people who could be registered.
Yeah.
Um, and we have obviously we have a voter turnout issue every election. I always laugh when people are like, "Oh, there's voter fraud." I'm like, "We can't even get people to show up once." What do you
Right.
like?
Exactly.
Like, what do you mean? That's come on. But like Texas, yeah, I'm like, okay. Texas is looking at somewhere, for these off-year elections, these midterms, somewhere, I wrote it down. I believe it's like 50-ish% of registered voters are showing up. But the cool thing that I'm sure you know is that Texas has open primaries. So
Yeah.
for our listeners, open primaries mean you can vote for whichever party you would like, um, which is the opposite of where I lived. New York, I'm a Democrat. I have to vote for a Democratic candidate. So maybe we can talk a little bit about how to get more people to show up for the primary. Last 2018, it was like I think it was like 3.5 million, and then even on the presidential year, it was like 4.1, which was down from the last presidential, and that's not a lot of people. So maybe we can talk
Yes.
about how to gain some excitement for these midterm elections and get the community involved and out.
Yeah. So, I've actually in my research that, a good candidate should be doing is I've pulled the numbers on voting for all the Senate elections since 2018 when Beto ran.
To.
So we've had Beto run, we've had MJ Hagar, who's a veteran that ran before Colin Allred, and then we had Colin
Yeah.
Allred run in this last second. And not to burst your bubble, but we did have more voters actually than those estimates. Um,
The
so
Texas Tribune lied to me.
uh, because I was looking at actual numbers here.
That's bamboozled.
But 2018 was 60%, 2020 was 73%, and
Okay.
24 was about 68% of voters that turned out of the total
Were you
registered
looking at
voters.
the Texas.gov? Is that where you
Um,
got that? Like the
so
Department of State?
those percentages that I pulled are from the actual number of people who voted, and
Okay.
then the amount of total registered voters that I pulled off the Secretary of State's website.
Yes.
So
Cool.
about those percentages are marked for how many people actually voted versus how many people were registered and able to. Um,
Okay.
so
Thanks for the correction. Embarrassed.
oh no, don't. It's all good. It's all good. Um, so it's actually a bit of a surprise because from 2018 and 2022, that was a 13% jump, and then only fell about 6% afterwards. So there's a fair amount of people that do turn out. The problem with Texas is that there is voter suppression, there's voter
Mm-hmm.
disenfranchisement that happens at the state level because not only is it hard to register for a mail-in ballot, sometimes it's hard to just register. Uh,
Okay.
and that's something that I know that the state has worked on because you can register to vote when you go to get a driver's license or a state ID card. Because now that we're moving into these real ID protections, you know, you're meeting the same criteria that
Right.
you'd
Everyone
need
has
to
to go
register.
anyways.
Right. So
So
it's like, hey, do
yeah.
you want to vote? Yeah, check that box off on there, and
Right. Right.
it's sent off to the Secretary of State. You get registered. Um, and obviously, because Republicans are holding, and the GOP is holding Texas, I want to say it's being held hostage in such a way because
Yeah.
of how much that they're doing. And they're basing a lot of things like voting locations and how many of them are in a county based on prior turnout. So if they suppress enough people in major areas, they have their own technical standing to reduce the amount of polling locations. There's a certain section of Harris County where there was only one polling location for hundreds of thousands of people versus a small county in West Texas that had one polling location for only a couple hundred. So
That's insane.
it is
I
insane.
mean,
Yeah.
especially because, election days are not a federally mandated holiday or anything like that. So like
Yeah.
people have to fucking work. Kids are in school. Like how are you supposed to go wait online for days? I mean hours and hours and hours. The entire day, right? Like
Right.
that is a modern day. Yeah, very very much voter suppression.
Yeah, and luckily it's not a huge it's not a huge hellscape at all
No.
necessarily that we think of when we think of Texas voting. It's like, man, they got you in an iron grip. They're slowly working towards becoming better, and because of the fact that the legislature is adjourned until 2027 now, there's not a lot of ground that we can make to make 2026 any better.
Right.
The only thing is that they were considering their own version of the SAVE Act from the federal level of instituting new
Hmm.
forms of ID or new forms of requirements to get registered, which it's already difficult enough to do so in some cases. Um, but Texas has been getting better over the years um, to increase the voter turnout. So there's a program in place that's called countywide polling program, which means if you're in a certain county that has a certain amount of population in it, you can go to any polling place in the entire county, which
See, that makes
is
sense.
really helpful.
That makes
Um,
sense. Yeah,
it's just a matter of
100%.
getting people out to vote, which is the huge problem. And the main problem that we tend to face here in Texas is that a lot of it is people cutting themselves short and selling themselves short. Is like, man, the GOP wins anyway. Why should I go vote? Well, first of all, with the amount of people that do vote, and the vast majority of the stories that I've been hearing over this municipal election, which, today is June 3rd, and this is the last day of early voting here in Texas for municipal elections. Um, I'm hearing a lot of stories that people are going to their polling place and they're out within 5 minutes. You think
Nice.
it's that much of an inconvenience to find your nearest polling location, go in, check in, get your ballot
Right.
card, fill it out, drop it off, get your sticker, wear it proudly,
Get out of
and
there.
get out. Go about your
Yeah.
day. Like you could be
Yeah.
going to get, your grocery run. You could be going your Costco run.
Wait, so
And
but you did say that Texas has early voting, right?
yeah, and
Yeah. So, I mean,
that's
that's
another
really
thing.
helpful. Yeah. That
Yeah.
is very helpful.
And granted, it's not doing as much as it should because, even here in San
Yeah.
Antonio, um, the first round in the municipal election that we had here, which is fun for a Senate candidate to talk about municipal elections so much. Um, the first go around for San Antonio, there was only 9.2% of people that voted in total, inclusive of the early voting days. And now we're in the
Cool.
runoff election, and more people voted during the early voting days.
God.
But I should position this in saying that during the main election, there was 27 candidates for mayor.
Okay.
27. But it's only because it's super easy to get on the ballot in San Antonio. It only costs
Okay.
$100 to get on the ballot in San Antonio for mayor. So not strange to have 27 people fill the
Sure.
general election. But the runoff has made it a lot easier for people to now know, okay, these are the people that I have to know who to vote for. Instead
Right.
of thinking, man, I don't know who to pick out of a field of 27 people.
Oh,
Which,
I went
I
to a
had people in that 27 people that I would have voted for. Well, I'm not in San Antonio proper. I'm in a suburb of San Antonio that's its own independent village. Um, and that's the other thing is in the village that I live in, this small little city that I live in, there were three candidates on the ballot, and because they ran unopposed, they canceled the election. Because how are you going to vote against anybody if there's only three candidates and they're all unopposed?
oh, oh, okay. I thought it was so there's three offices
Well,
running
there
and
there
each
was like
one is
five offices, I think, on that ballot,
right, but
and
it's not
three of them
like
had a candidate.
I heard it and I was like, oh, there's one office with three candidates. You gotta do it. But no,
Well,
I see what
yeah, the
happened.
other way around. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was like, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
Uh,
So that's another thing that I think we have to look at is, especially going into 2026 now, is making sure that no seats are unopposed.
right,
If
right, right,
if
right.
there is a seat that has a candidate that doesn't have anybody running against them, I highly encourage you to be that person. Whoever's listening to this podcast, I encourage you to
Yeah,
be that person. Make sure that
seriously.
that person is on the record about all of their platform ideas, because if you give them a free win, if you give them the buy, they
Yeah,
don't have to be on the record about anything. And
right.
that's not contributing to democracy. That's just allowing them to hold that position in perpetuity.
They're skating,
Mm.
skating by. Yeah, I mean, I think a big thing in Texas right now, specifically for your upcoming election, as in Senate is going to be kind of re-enfranchising some of these voters. And I don't mean it in the fact that like they need to get registered to vote. I mean it more in the fact that like they need to know that their vote matters so much. And I think when we are looking at those numbers with Beto and Ted Cruz in 2018, it's like he was like 200,000 people off. Like that's
Yeah.
not
It,
it's
it
and
wasn't an insignificant amount. No. Yeah.
yeah, I mean like realistically, especially when we're talking about how many more registered voters there were than actually showed up. And I do think that is in part, might have been what he said about the guns, sure. But I
Yeah.
think it also might have been just people, like you said, feeling like, the GOP wins every time. We haven't had a Democratic elected statewide candidate, since 94, what, like, so I think there's some aspect to re-energizing and like I keep saying re-enfranchising. They're not fully disenfranchised, but it is
Right.
like it's just getting that mentality back of like, you
It's
know,
encouraging them about the power that they hold and that they
yeah,
are, and we as the people are the change that
right,
we want to see. You
exactly,
have the power to go out and say, this is the person I want representing me. Like twice. You get to vote for it in the primary and you get to vote for it in the general.
yeah, yeah,
So if we can't just we can't comply in advance. We can't
yeah.
allow another party to just hold the power because a long shot it's too much or this or that the other. You this my biggest criticism of the Democratic National Committee is leaving Texas behind.
They've left so many states behind, and it's sometimes I feel like it's like banging your head against the wall, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, so we'll pour however many more millions of dollars into Ohio again
Right. It's
and
like, yeah, all
Wisconsin
these
again.
battleground states. And it's like, it
Yeah,
only matters in the presidential election whether or not you do that. Like,
right.
of course, you want to win the states that have the highest amount of electoral votes. But when you're in the
Texas is one of
midterms,
those.
yeah,
Texas is one
exactly.
of those. You're like,
Yeah. Like
yeah,
45, 48 electoral votes.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, a significant amount. And here you are
Right.
leaving it behind because it's too far off. Like,
Yeah.
if you do some grassroots investing in Texas, from a national level, if you do that into a grassroots level, those seeds are going to plant, they're going to sprout, they're going to bloom,
Yeah.
and you can fight away the disenfranchisement and the suppression,
Mm-hmm.
specifically from getting into the boards where it matters.
Yeah.
And that's been a huge problem for me because you said, 18 million registered voters, Democrats make up 8 million of that. The
Yeah.
independents cut another third of that out, and then the Republicans are the rest. So
Right.
Democrats can win, and that's why we see so much suppression because
They can. I
they
know.
can.
The numbers line up. It is a
Yeah,
winnable state. And
we
it's,
just have to work for it.
which is, God forbid, and God
Yeah,
forbid the Democrats show up and they knock fucking doors and that's, but so like I went down and I volunteered on Beto's campaign for
yeah,
a week and a half in 2018 from New York. And like there were volunteers from all over the country. And that's exactly what everyone was doing, knocking on doors, community events, like really building some of these like big coalitions around. And again, just reminding people, your vote really does matter. And if it didn't, they wouldn't be working so hard to get you to not do it.
exactly. Yeah, because they want to take the power for themselves. They want to
Yep.
have, a mandate, even though they only have half of each chamber in Congress right now.
Yeah.
We would love to flip that. I as a candidate would love to be one of the people that helps flip Texas blue because, you know, we're so far removed from good representation
Yeah.
that it's insane to me because, I send messages, I send emails to Senator Cruz and Senator Cornyn and my rep Tony Gonzalez all the time.
Hmm.
And you would not believe the disparity in things that the intersectionality of the Venn diagram of this is what they've worked on and this is what I want them to work on, and they're just two circles abutting each other.
Right. 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 Right.
So the form responses are very different depending on, it's something that they've worked on and they have an actual response for versus, hey, do your job. And it's like, oh, we'll get to your response as
Yeah.
quickly as possible. If you need
Right.
help, call us, buddy. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank,
Helpful. Love
thanks
it.
for that. Yeah, my day has been made better, and I feel more comfortable having you as my representative. Thank you,
Seems like you're doing great work.
Sharon. I'm sure that's a sentiment that a lot of people across the country feel about their representatives when they don't get the response
Yes.
they need.
Oh, of course. Of course. Okay, so we are coming up on time here. Could you tell everyone where they can follow your campaign, donate, volunteer, and then
Yeah,
we're gonna do our rapid fire questions.
perfect. Yeah, so I've tried to make it as easy as possible for everybody. So I am Mike for Texas, MikeForTexas, across the vast majority of social platforms, and I'm MikeSwanson.org on Blue Sky. You could also get me on my link tree, which is also Mike for Texas, which is all those links, has a newsletter sign up, has a volunteer form connection. You can donate through there. You can donate on ActBlue. My link, my link slug is Mike Swanson, or you can go to Michael Swanson. I have both of them. So
Nice.
either way works out for you. You can donate through either of those links. Also on my website, MikeSwanson.org, and connects you to everything as well.
Amazing. Thank you. All right. Are you ready?
Let's
It's
get
like
it.
8 or 9 rapid fire questions.
We'll see how rapid I make it in my responses, but
I know, right? I have two matching notebooks and one I have the
which
questions written in and one I have everything else in my life written in. So, okay, hold on a minute. Here we go.
love it.
Are you more of a cat or a dog person?
I'm more of a dog person.
Do you have a dog?
I live with two dogs right now. Yes, they're both Chihuahua mixes, and they're very lovely to be around.
Chihuahuas are like such cute little punks of dogs.
Hmm.
They do not take anything. They don't take no shit.
Little
Um,
troublemakers they are. Yeah.
literally, and they like live forever. I love it. I like
Hmm.
they're never leaving your side. Okay, so in terms of food, when you're craving something sweet, salty.
Oh goodness, that like I'm a foodie, so I got every craving on lock. I got Texas blood in me by going specifically to Whataburger all the time. So
Yeah.
usually it's Whataburger if I want a burger. Like
Okay.
for Chinese, I'll get some teriyaki chicken, orange chicken. I'll find the best gyoza that I can, some dumpling. Mexican food, there's nothing I won't eat Mexican food.
Yeah.
So
Seriously, it's I all my friends from California who've moved to New York are like, "You call this Mexican food?" I was like, "You live on it, so different. We're doing the best we can. Come
those
on."
those San Diego Californians, yeah, they will get you.
Yeah. If you had to pick one political or historical figure to who inspires you, who would it be?
Ooh, um, he was a governor of Wisconsin and a senator from Wisconsin, Robert La Follette. Uh, he was a progressive champion, surprisingly for that time period.
What time period was that? You know?
This was like beginning of 1900, so this was when Teddy Roosevelt was president.
Also, like the
Um,
very progressive era, you know?
Definitely, yeah. He massive influential man on the progressive movement in the 1900s. Got a lot of things done for both Wisconsin and the Senate. So that's someone I'm trying to replicate.
I like it. Like it. Um, when you need a break, you're very stressed out. What do you do?
Cry. No, I'm kidding.
I was like, same, me too, bless.
Same.
Literally. I just like weep and then I'm like, okay, let's go. We gotta get shit done.
Oh my gosh. Like I will like it's not really doom scrolling when it's on YouTube or TikTok or anything like
Yeah.
that for me, but like I will just zone out and I'll just go into social media and just like I go on my personal pages obviously and
Yeah.
I'll just like go through whatever it is and just tone out the world. So it's like if I need a
Yeah.
break from the world, I'll go somewhere else for it.
I have to set timers. I'm like 30 minutes and we zone and then
They
we
would
like come out of it on the other side.
they wouldn't work for me. I just flick the timer off.
Okay, so since you're a foodie, and it's gonna be like trying to choose a favorite star out of the sky.
Oh
What is
my
your
God.
favorite food?
Yeah, you're right. It's trying to pick a star of this guy. Um, and that's the same thing that like when people ask me, it's like, oh, if you could have something right now, right in front of you, and it's like, dude, I don't even know right now. Um,
Or how about
so
this? What's like one of the most memorable meals you've had in the last year?
Oh goodness. I've had a few, but I don't even know if I can answer that one well because it's like I I remember a few things, but apparently I don't remember them well enough to be because they were like, okay, they were that good, but I haven't had enough to set it in memory. Um, okay, that's well, we might have to come back to that one.
We can come back to that one. I mean,
Okay, perfect.
we were on our last question here.
Oh, dang. Okay.
So you're gonna, well, this is this next one, and then we'll loop back.
Okay.
What is your favorite thing about Texas?
It like everyone hears about Southern hospitality, and I feel like that's something that's, forgotten about within the
Yeah.
Southern states is like you can care about your neighbor. If you take away politics, if you take away partisanship from everything and you leave just the person, you get Southern
Mm-hmm.
hospitality. It's a great thing because you're just like, okay, they know how to care for their neighbor. They know how to
Right.
care for people. They know how to do this. It's just a matter of taking that and moving it up into legislating it. So yeah, I'd say the Southern hospitality is probably one of the greatest things about Texas.
All right. We're
That memorable
returning.
meal.
Memorable
I
meal.
thought there was
That's it.
more, but we're right at the
No,
end.
no. We're right at the
Um,
end.
so, so let's. Oh, um, probably not from the last year, but within the last couple of years. Um, it was a really good sandwich for no good reason. Uh, so back in the time that I was working for United, I was based in San Francisco, and one of my roommates had this really uh good sandwich shop that he would go to called
Yeah.
Subculture. Um,
All right.
and
All right, San Fran.
right. Uh, that and I'm sure if John Cornyn figures out this podcast, he'd be like, "Oh, he's Californian. He's gonna California or Texas. Don't worry about it, dude." Uh,
I was about to say, Elon already kind of did that, didn't he?
Elon already kind of
Uh,
did it. I'm not the first to get there. But yeah, so my roommate in San Francisco, he was a big fan of going to a place called Subculture, which stellar sandwiches if you're in the area. So that I'd probably say that's one of the more memorable ones that I've had.
right. Well, guys, that is our time for today. Again, this is Mike Swanson running for U.S. Senate in Texas. You can go to his website, which is mikeswanson.org,
Mhm.
hear all of his stances on the issues, donate, volunteer, follow along. Thank you. Thanks so much. So excited
Yeah,
to see where you go.
yeah, it was a great time. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
If you've made it this far, thank you so much. Thank you for following The Foolish Optimist. You can follow us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, pretty much. We're going to be dropping new episodes every Wednesday, and you can watch the video episodes on YouTube. If you would like to, please give us a review, leave comments. You can also email us at thefoolishoptimistpodcast@gmail.com. If you see any really great candidates that I should be talking to, send them my way. Thank you.